Hi, welcome to What Are You Reading, a podcast of the Public Library of Mount Vernon in Knox County. I'm Christy.
And I'm Katie.
And this month we decided, because we're in July, so we wanted to, heading into August, dog days of summer, we wanted to pick books that reminded us of summer or, you know, kind of like the warm weather, just something to keep us in that vibe. And I picked Dead Until Dark by Charlene Harris. And also I should mention we decided to do audiobooks this month.
Yes.
And these are available on Hoopla, so, you know, if you want to check those out. What did you read?
I read Remarkably Bright Creatures by Shelby Van Pelt. You notice that mine is not a physical copy because this book is extremely popular right now.
Awesome.
The library does have copies, but there's a wait list for it.
Wow.
And we are working on ordering some more copies so that whole list goes through.
Good.
But definitely the Hoopla version is really great.
Yay. I love an audiobook. They come in handy so often. The amount of times that I have been driving or doing a craft at home and my mind just can't work on one thing. So putting my headphones on, listening to an audiobook when I'm working on like a puzzle or, you know, any kind of craft I'm doing, it's awesome.
Yeah, and with Hoopla, you can even adjust the reading speed.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, I have mine set, like, slightly above. It's, like, 1.3.
Okay.
Or something like that. Because I have heard people complain that, you know, some audiobooks are kind of droning and are really slow and go on and on. It's like, well, just speed it up.
Right. I think I'm at 1.5, but it depends on the narrator.
Yes.
You know, so I think everybody, and you can mess with that as well, which is great. So if, you know, you find out it's going too fast, you can change it, you know, all of that stuff. But this one just so happened to be that I did slow it down a little bit because there was like a little bit of an accent. Like a little bit of a southern accent. And so I wanted to make sure that I was really understanding everything that was being said. So a lot of times I'm at 1.5, but for this one I slowed it down a little bit, probably to like 1.3. One for me, although is good, I still sometimes like, I gotta speed it up.
Yeah. So having listened to most of them at 1.3, when like the setting accidentally gets changed, it sounds like they're speaking through molasses. It's so slow.
It really does when you get used to that, like really quick.
Yeah. But if you need, and it does go slower too. So if you do need more to be able to get things from it, you can adjust it that way too.
Absolutely. And like we said, I feel like subject matter really affects that.
Oh yeah.
The narrator. So yeah, that having that option is great. It's accessible for everybody. And because Hoopla is available right now, like, hey, we kind of got to skip the line, you know? Like
Yep. You don't have to wait for Remarkably Bright Creatures. You could listen to it right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
After our podcast, of course.
Yes. Like, you got to hear what we have to say first. Well, do you want to tell me a little bit about yours?
So, yeah, you can kind of tell from the cover that there's a giant Pacific octopus.
Wow.
And his name is Marcellus.
Okay.
And he lives in an aquarium. He was kidnapped, we'll say, from the ocean when he was small, and now he is reaching kind of the end of his life. And he's a sneaky guy. He can get out of his tank whenever he wants, and he has timed it so that he knows he's got about 20 minutes before he starts getting sluggish and has to get back in the water. Mostly he escapes to get food. One of the things that he complains about, and yes, he does talk, but he does not interact with the people
Okay.
in like an audible way.
So we're getting his inner monologue.
Yes, his inner monologue.
Okay.
So he complains because the sharks get all this really great fish and variety and all kinds of stuff, and they give him the same thing every day.
Mm.
So he might even eat some of the exhibits. He loves sea cucumbers. They are delicious, apparently. And the woman on the cover, her name is Tova, and she too is kind of reaching the end of her life. And she cleans the aquarium.
Okay.
And one day she finds Marcellus, and he wandered into the break room looking for Chinese food.
Oh my gosh.
And he got tangled in all of the like electrical cords that were in there. So she had to disentangle him. And he wraps one of his tentacles around her just to kind of almost like a handshake.
Wow.
Before he goes back in his enclosure. And they develop a friendship. Like, she talks to him, he hears her, he understands her, but he can't talk back to her.
Oh, yeah.
And what makes it even more intricate, there's a few other characters in the book too that are pretty important, and Marcellus is kind of the thing that they all have in common, and not in the way that you would think. Okay. So Tova had a son who committed suicide, took a boat out into the water, and then just never came back. And the son and Marcellus are connected in a particular way. So part of the book is Marcellus realizing that connection and being able to bring it to Tova's attention because he can't talk to her.
Wow.
It's really funny. It's really heartfelt. Marcellus is really snarky. He doesn't understand some of our idioms.
Okay.
And I'm trying to think of one of the ones that he mentioned. He legit thinks that he is being held in prison because he does not want to live in his tank. He bemoans the fact that he will never have a relationship with a lady octopus. Yeah,
I'm like a bleeding heart for animals, so I'm like my face is slowly like dropping.
I know, and that's what I was really hoping, because they got a female giant Pacific octopus in to, when the time came, to take over his enclosure, and I'm like, can't they just get together?
Yeah, right. Can't he meet someone?
It's like the one. Just give him one crazy night that he can remember for like the last 20 days or whatever that he's gonna live. But he develops friendships with the people, and the teenager who committed suicide, Tova's son. That might not be the end of his story.
Interesting.
So.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting that. So that's kind of interesting. Huh. Okay. Wow. Well, I can see why this is like a bestseller. And I was just telling Katie that my last trip to the bookstore, there was a huge display for this book. So I know there's a lot of hype, a lot of excitement around it.
Yeah, it's very book club friendly because there's a lot of stuff going into it. Does deal with grief, although nobody passes on the page. And it does show, because Tova's son was a teenager when he committed suicide, and this is like 20 years later.
Okay.
So it kind of shows how she's still in the grips of that. When she meets Marcellus and develops the friendship, and that animals are not stupid, and they are aware of what is going on, or at least some animals.
I know, like in reality, there's a lot of discussion about the octopi and how just brilliant they are. And even
Mhm.
going to aquariums and like personal experience that, they need enrichment, and they can play with
Mhm.
toys, and they're very, very intelligent animals.
Mhm.
So,
Well, yeah, how he gets out is there's like this little hole, maybe not even this big, and he's able to squish his body down to
Wow.
fit because they don't have bones.
yeah.
So, yeah, and he's able to
Yeah.
very much like the character from Finding Dory.
Oh, yeah.
So, yes, although even more snarky and full of himself than the octopus in Finding Dory.
It sounds so unique. Like,
Mhm.
such a unique book, and something that I think a lot of people could get something from.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like there's a lot of good talking points, like you mentioned, for a book club. It'd be great.
Yep, lots of layers to it.
And since it's on Hoopla, everybody can check it out at the same time.
Yes, and you will love the person who reads Marcellus, because he's just...
Is he a great narrator?
He's a great narrator. Catches that like snarkiness
nice
perfectly.
I love that. That's really what... And I did want to bring this up because I've read my book so many times. So I really wanted to listen to the audiobook this time to see if I got something different from it. And I tend to think that if I was reading that with my internal monologue, although great, Marcellus would sound like me. I'm not gifted in that ability to like imagine myself kind of as something else. But hearing someone else be a character kind of, creates that cinematic view in my head.
Yeah, and there are two speakers in this. So Marcellus is his own guy, and then all the other characters are read by someone else.
Okay. I love that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to give that a try. Like, you've convinced
me. It is so good.
So I'm gonna have to listen to it too. Put it on that TBR that's like Santa's list, or it just goes across the floor and into the next room.
Yep.
Yeah. I'll add it to that. Well, now I get to tell you guys about the book that I picked, which, like I mentioned, Charlene Harris, Dead Until Dark. And you might be familiar with the series. It was the Sookie Stackhouse series that became True Blood on HBO.
Okay.
So it does exist and it's quite different. I will say that. The show does take some way different turns than the book series. So if you've seen that and you haven't read the books, definitely still give the book a try, because you're going to get a lot of differences. We meet Sookie Stackhouse, who is a waitress in Bon Ton, Louisiana. And she also happens to, what she says is a disability in her mind. She can read other people's minds.
Ooh.
So she can hear what everyone's saying. And that has caused her to be kind of a little bit of a recluse. She hasn't been able to date because she can hear what her date is thinking the entire time. She doesn't like to be around a lot of people because while she's talking to you, she's hearing what you're saying. So she can come off as having, not being present in a conversation. So she doesn't really have a lot of friends. She's kind of picked on by the town. And she just waits tables at Merlotte's, which is like a local greasy spoon / bar.
Okay.
She is doing her, her usual duties, and we have a vampire walk into the restaurant. And in this world that Charlene's created, vampires exist and they're out. So they have exposed themselves to the world.
Okay.
They have explained vampirism as kind of like a disease or a disorder. There's been a bottled blood product created that is artificial blood.
Okay.
That's called True Blood.
Sure.
So they're able to drink without harming humans.
Okay.
So there's, which I really love how she built the world, because in this book particularly, we're getting introduced to all of this.
Mm-hmm.
So we do know that there's kind of a political system within the vampire world.
Mm-hmm.
We're learning about what vampires can and can't do.
Mm-hmm.
Sookie, of course, has a soft spot for this vampire that has walked in because he's different too.
Okay.
So she finally meets somebody that she can't hear what they're saying.
Oh, yeah.
So we're going down a rabbit hole with, they're dead. Does that mean, there's no brain activity? We can get really deep with this, but we won't.
Yeah.
So she finally met somebody that she can kind of start a relationship with.
Mm-hmm.
And we meet a colorful cast of characters that are in the town. We also find out that vampire blood is a drug that is being sold on the black market.
Oh.
So our very first introduction with Bill, who happens to be our vampire, Bill Compton, he is being hunted by a husband and wife, who are on the search for vampire blood so that they can sell it on the black market and make lots of money. So he has to come in and save the day. And we create a bond there. So it's definitely got some romance in it.
Mm-hmm.
We're romance, we're supernatural. Mm-hmm. We've got mystery because we've got some murders happening in the town.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a little bit of a mix of everything.
Okay.
Oh, and I love this cover, a little sparkly.
Yeah.
But I did listen to the audiobook, which was phenomenal. Mm-hmm. There was, like I mentioned earlier, with slowing it down a little bit because it's very easy to understand. But we are dealing with, some Creole dialect, some, little bit of a Southern accent there. So very easy to understand, but it definitely gives you that ambiance, again, because Midwesterner. So it was really great to have somebody reading it, kind of giving inflection and really making you feel like you're there.
Yeah.
And this book takes place in summertime. So we get lots of descriptions of those beautiful Southern nights, of living in the country and the fireflies and, that summer feeling of the humidity and the sun on your skin, and just kind of gives you all those summer vibes.
Okay. Yeah.
While still being a little spooky.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Now, in this world, are vampires able to go out during the daytime?
So they do occasionally, but not very often at all. And it has to be under heavy protection. So they aren't really the day walker type.
Okay.
So most of their business they're still doing at night, but they are able to come out around dusk and stuff like that.
Okay, so they're not the burst into flames.
Yeah, not
if they're
quite.
Yeah.
There's definitely will start smoking, but it takes a little bit more than just a little bit of sun exposure.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
They do have their allergy to silver, so there's a lot of traditional things still in the vampire lore that connects here. As you can tell in this cover, we are levitating. So if you're into that, we got some supernatural abilities here.
Okay.
Super strength. There happens to be a bit of a murder. Oopsie. That has to be covered up.
Sure.
And that super strength comes in real handy to make it look like a tornado hit the town.
Okay.
Explaining that away when all the meteorologists are like, there was no storm here. Like, oh, no, it was a small tornado. Just hit this one house.
Yeah. So a little bit of a Lenny and of Mice of Men situation.
Yes, very much so. Very much so. And I love that our main female character has an ability too. And it's very interesting that she sees it more as a disability than an ability that could be helpful.
Sure.
But she's going on her own journey of self-discovery, too. Another really fun aspect of this is that Bill, our vampire, he is from Bon Temps, and he was alive during the Civil War.
Okay.
So we do have a bit of, a little bit of history mixed in there. Having somebody that was alive during that time who... one of the greatest scenes is Sookie lives with her grandmother, and her grandmother is a member of, all kinds of groups and ladies groups that are committed to the history of the Civil War and the area they live in. Mm-hmm. And as a favor, she asked him to speak at one of her ladies' night gatherings.
Okay.
So he does tell them a little bit, some stories of the Civil War and, things that actually happened that he lived through, as opposed to stories passed down through families. Mm-hmm. So that's an interesting part of it, too.
Yeah.
Things that I have never thought about in, like, vampire lore. Mm-hmm. Of they were alive for X number of, you can actually ask them, and they were there.
Yeah.
So that's kind of fun, too.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, it's a good one. It's a really long series, I will admit. If you happen to pick up the first one and really enjoy it, I think there's about 12 total in the series. But it is just a wonderful world, and you can, like I said, listen to audiobooks. True Blood, the show, does exist, and it is great, but yeah, there's a lot of differences. So you can enjoy both parts of the media separately. Mm-hmm. That is a thing you can do. We've been talking about it with Game of Thrones, which it's very similar. There's going to be some differences, but it's just great to have all these forms of media that you can imbibe the same content.
Sure.
In different ways. So yeah, definitely recommend. Mm-hmm. If you want a spooky summer. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us again for another month of talking about books we love and some that we might not love. But this month was a good one. Mm-hmm. Both loved them. So, Well, we'll catch you in the next one. Like, subscribe, all that great stuff. Please, if you do read these, let us know. Comment below. Stop in and see us at the main branch of the public library. We would love to see you. So we'll see you next month. Bye.
Bye.